hope you're ready for another Cricut tutorial. Today we're going to talk about creating scrapbook borders to fit your layouts. Last week when I made this chevron border layout, I promised you a tutorial showing you how I made this border. Many of you struggle making borders wide enough to fit your scrapbook page. So today I'm going to walk you through a design space tutorial and show you how I use the weld and slice features to make a border wide enough for my scrapbook layout design. Let's get started. I'm starting out with a blank canvas in Design Space and I'm searching my images for scallop border. I'm going to filter purchased images so that I can see the scallop borders I own. My design calls for a very tight, small scallop border, and the only one that I can find is this one that comes from the Art Philosophy collection. Now this collection is available through a link on my website and I have put that in the description below. You can see this has a very tight scallop on the top and the bottom, and I only want that bottom scallop. So I'm going to go ahead and insert it here into my canvas and show you how I'm going to use the slice and weld features to make this a border that I need for my scrapbook page. So I've resized the image so that we can see it here on the canvas, and I just want this bottom border. On my scrapbook page, I did use the part of the border that has all these little holes in the scallop, but I want to take apart the two pieces and see what the underlying layer looks like. So I'm going to do that by hitting Ungroup, and then I can pull apart the two images. For today's tutorial, we're going to use the solid design. If you choose to use the lacier type design like I did in my scrapbook layout, you'll be following the same steps to manipulate this image. On my scrapbook page, I'm only wanting the scallops along the bottom of this border, so I'm going to slice out that portion of the image. I'm starting by inserting a square, unlocking the image, and I'm just going to drag this rectangle across the lower half of the image. Now I will select all to select both images and then choose Slice in the lower right-hand corner. As you can see, that Slice tool has sliced these images into multiple pieces. The only image we need is that bottom scallop border piece, so I'm going to go ahead and delete the pieces I don't need. Right now each scallop measures 3/4 of an inch and I want them to measure 1/4 inch. So I'm going to scale down this border quite a bit, and as I place it over the grid I can see that each one of these scallops now measures about 1/4 of an inch wide. Scaling it down did change the width of this border, and I need it to be 10 inches wide for my layout. So we need to duplicate this border and weld a few pieces together. I'm going to choose Duplicate over here in the Layers panel. Each piece measures approximately 4.5 inches, so I need 3 to create my border. I always duplicate one additional piece and set it aside. It's often hard to unweld an image, so I have this extra piece in case I need it later. Now we're going to get ready to weld these images. So I'm going to zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just aligning each one of these scallop borders, overlapping the end scallops. Then I'm going to choose all 3 images, select Align, and Align to Top. Now that all 3 layers are aligned at the top, I can select them again and choose Weld. Now we have a welded border that's a little over 12 inches. I want to show you how to create the 10-inch border I had for my layout and how to make a few 12-inch borders you might need for a full-size layout. I've duplicated our border. One is going to be for our 10-inch border, one is going to be for a full-length 12-inch border, and the other one is going to show you how to create a 2-part 12-inch border. All of these are borders that you are going to need when you're creating scrapbook pages. Let's start by resizing that top border to a 10-inch border. Insert a square shape, change the size to 10 inches wide, the size of your border, by 1 inch high, a little bit wider than the border itself. I'm going to send to back, then align that rectangle where I want it to slice along those scallops. Sometimes you just want to manipulate it a little bit so that your scallops look the way you want them to look once they are sliced. Once you've made that decision, you can select both those images, then select the slice tool. And now I have a 10-inch border. This is the exact size I need for my layout. I'm going to go ahead and delete those unwanted images before we start working on that full-size 12-inch border. We're going to be following the exact same steps for this 12-inch border. I'm inserting a square shape and I'm resizing it to 12 inches wide by 1 inches high. Again, I'm going to send that rectangle to the back and move the border across the rectangle where I want the image sliced. Select both images and choose the slice tool. At this point, you are probably wondering how we're going to cut out a 12-inch border when Design Space only allows you to cut out an 11.5-inch image on a 12-inch mat. Let me show you how we're going to do this. Since my border is over 12 inches, Design Space has automatically placed this on a 12 by 24 inch mat. I have a 12 by 12 mat. I'm going to show you how to place your paper down on that 12 by 12 mat and fool Design Space into thinking you're cutting on that 12 by 24 inch mat. I have here a standard 12 by 12 Cricut mat and the cardstock I'm cutting my border from. If you take a look at my Cricut mat, you're going to see this little notch here that's a 1/4 inch below the top line and a line that I've drawn a 1/4 inch below the bottom line. Your Cricut machine will start cutting a 1/4 inch below that top line. So I'm placing my cardstock at that 1/4 inch mark. Now I have this base line drawn at the bottom so that I know where to line up the bottom line because that border is 12 inches long and the Cricut machine is going to cut a full 12-inch border. Remember, it thinks that I'm putting in a 12 by 24 inch mat. By having these two lines of reference, I can fool Design Space into thinking it's cutting on that larger mat and be able to use my smaller mat for cutting out the border. Before we place this into our machine, we're going to need to move that image over to the right side of the mat. So you're going to select Edit, drag that image over to the right side, choose Done, and now your image will cut on the right side of the mat. I've placed my mat into my Cricut machine. It's going to start cutting a 1/4 inch from the top, go all the way down to that bottom line that I've drawn, and start creating that scallop border. Let's take a look at what this looks like cut out. As you can see, it started cutting a 1/4 inch from the top and it went all the way down to that bottom line. As I pull off this border, you can see there's just a tiny portion at the top where it started, but it goes all the way down to the bottom. If I measure it with a ruler, it still measures 12 inches. It's probably just barely a hair below, but it will work perfectly to go across a 12-inch page. For those of you who don't even want to mess with trying to fool Design Space and trying to get that perfectly on a 12 by 12 mat, I have another option for you. I'm going to show you how to create two separate pieces of the border that measure 12 inches in total. Again, we're going to follow the same steps to create a 12-inch border, inserting a square shape, changing the size to 12 inches by 1 inches, then slicing the two images so you have a 12-inch border. We are going to be cutting this border into a 4-inch piece and an 8-inch piece. You are going to insert a square shape and change the size to 4 inches wide. I'm going to bring that scallop image to the front. Before I slice, I want to make sure both of these images are aligned on the left. I'm going to select both images, choose Align, Align Left, and now both images are perfectly aligned on the left side. Now I'm going to select both images and choose the Slice tool. By choosing the Slice tool, I now have a 4-inch piece of the border and an 8-inch piece of the border. When these are placed down across the scrapbook page, you will never know that seam is there. If it does bother you, just add a little bow or embellishment. Now you know how to create a 10-inch border, a full-length 12-inch border, and a 2-part 12-inch border for your scrapbook pages. I want to thank you for joining me today as we talked about creating these borders in Design Space for your scrapbook pages. As you can see, it worked out perfectly to create this using the Slice and Weld tools. It is super easy to do with any border images you own in Design Space. If you would like to learn more Cricut Design Space basics, you can join any of my online classes or visit my blog or YouTube channel for some monthly tutorials. I hope today's project inspired you to dust off your Cricut and try something new. If you'd like to see more Cricut tutorials in the future, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you'd like to see other Cricut tutorials I've created in the past, you can view the entire collection using the link above. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.